It is Friday, and I have no remaining willpower or energy to investigate matters of substance. None at all. I just want to snag some funny people and kick around funny headlines before I slink into my weekend stupor. If you are new to the program and you were impressed with the analysis and thought that went into the midweek flagship program where we explore policies and big ideas, I should warn you, Fridays are where we check in on weird stories involving baboons and Florida, often in the same headline. This week, I did a whole episode on the Postal Service. I researched that, I recorded it, but we're done with that. We've had our salad, it's the weekend, now it's time to sip a little bit of our beer bong, which means it's time for Friday Release Valve. But before we get into that, let's have some announcements from some of our fellow orphans. Big shout out to the good folks who have been sending me artwork for the Political Orphanage, Snuffies, and the Rogue Wig Party. I'm planning to make a stickers bag, maybe some t-shirts, possibly tattoos. So I really appreciate people sending in good ideas. David Sierra, a Snuffies VIP member, sent me an excellent new Snuffies logo. Looks very modern yet whimsical. Thank you, David. That will likely end up on a t-shirt. The very helpful orphan Jason Richards contacted a talented artist named Kristen Plana who designed an absolutely badass Rogue Wig Party emblem of an honest-to-God Argyle raccoon. The people of this planet once believed the world was flat. Columbus proved it was round. They said the sound barrier could never be broken. It was broken. They said warp speed could not be achieved. And they said no one could ever figure out how to make an Argyle raccoon, but it happened. It looks super cool. I tweeted that out yesterday. If you all want to see it at Mighty Heaton, that will be a sticker in no time, maybe a campaign button. I'm working on those as we speak, assuming that negotiations with Plana or Plana don't bottom out. I don't have muscle yet with the Wig Party, but I'm working on that, and then we'll just be able to sort that out quietly off campus. And in the world of artwork sent to me, a big shout out to Caden Kelly, a sophomore in Central Maine, who made pop art of me running for vice president with a raccoon sidekick buddy. Caden, not only is your excellent illustration of me complete with my signature window pane blazer and tie, the coolest I have ever looked, I think it might also be the coolest I have ever felt. Much obliged, Caden, thank you. Finally, Matthew emailed me on behalf of another orphan. He writes, Heaton, I would like to give a shout-out to your media assistant, Eric Stipe, not for his work on the show, but for the fact that, even though he believes himself to be terrible at it, he is willing to DM a game of Savage World for some of us in the Discord server who never had enough nerd friends growing up to actually play D&D and the like. We appreciate his willingness to lead us in a game and teach us the ropes, so once complete, we can sally forth into the great unknown, wiser and more nerdish. Thank you for that message, Matthew. It absolutely delights me to know that people from this community are playing Dungeons & Dragons or something similar to it via Discord, and hats off to Eric for organizing it. Furthermore, Eric's birthday is next week, so happy birthday, Eric. A big hip hip hooray from all of your friends here at the Political Orphanage, and more specifically, from Snuffies, off Route 44. The main sponsor of this program, where, as I understand it, you are holding your birthday celebration this year, which makes sense. Snuffies is good food, good times, and the only restaurant in the tri-state area where your birthday cake is carted out by a massive 400-pound Clydesdale named the Major, who flies into a rage if you fail to blow out all the candles. Be sure to blow out all those candles, Eric, otherwise the Clydesdale's gonna knock your table over. If you have cool artwork for the show and you want to share it or turn it into a t-shirt, there's a nifty project you want to promote, or a shout-out for a deserving listener of this program, feel free to reach out. And I will briefly plug myself. I have a whole other sci-fi podcast called Alienating the Audience, so if you like the Political Orphanage and you're a dork, check out Alienating the Audience to hear me nerd it up every week about Star Trek, Star Wars, and any number of things involving lasers. Lastly, as you know, I am running for Vice President of the United States of America as a Whig. We don't have a presidential candidate this year. It's just me. And I want to say I appreciate the many people who have reached out this last week to volunteer to work on my campaign, specifically the fine folks who chimed in from Louisiana. I blew the conch shell, and several people have reached out. Thank you to all of you. We will be in contact in short order. You might recall, listener, that last week some miscreants from Australia decided to form a breakaway rogue Whig party of the Outback, and that I got into some hot water with the media when I made a central tenet of my campaign platform the total and unquestioned annihilation of Pluto. Well, that prompted Leon to write, Mr. Heaton, we were willing to deal with your antics up to a point, but we cannot in good conscience follow you into a foolish war with Pluto. We are therefore forced to form the rogue Whig party de la Pluto in hopes of restoring its planethood and also giving it 1 or 2 electoral votes. Incidentally, our party mascot is a tardigrade. Not sure how I feel about this trend of splitting off micro-parties. The point at which we have more Whig splinter groups than Whigs, I might have to put a stop to it. But for now, I applaud your initiative, Leon, and while I remain committed to the destruction of Pluto, I do wish you luck in getting it electoral votes until that time happens. If you have provisions you want to see added to the rogue Whig party platform, tweet them to me at Mighty Heaton or email me at heatonforvp@mightyheaton.com. For example, one of my new policy provisions that I don't think the Democratic Party or the Republican Party has had the cojones to own up to. I'm the only one with a backbone to suggest this kind of thing because I'm an actual leader. I have thrown out to the masses that if elected vice president, I will make it a law that Sam Elliott is allowed to commandeer any podium in the country at any time and talk about whatever he wants for as long as he wants, including at weddings and funerals. That's the kind of leadership you can expect from me when I am in the Naval Observatory as the occupant of the second highest office in the land. Maybe you can come up with better policy ideas than that. I don't know. Hit me up. All right, let's get to those headlines after a brief Patreon plug. Before we jump in, this show is sponsored by its very own listeners on Patreon. And if you want to support pithy, nonpartisan, independent political analysis, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Andrew Heaton. Not only will you be directly responsible for keeping this awesome juggernaut of a podcast afloat, you'll also have access to weekly bonus episodes, including the back catalog of bonus episodes that are already there, where I get super nerdy on political science and ethics and politics and sometimes make references to pop culture or mythology. That's patreon.com/Andrew Heaton. Jack and Brian, welcome back.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Good, Jack.
Well, let's see how this goes.
You're a loser. You weren't fast enough.
That's right, because podcasting's like the old West, only with microphones.
I'm a quick speak.
Yeah, that's why I like to answer like all YouTube videos. I just go first. I'm that guy.
Yeah.
Yep. And I should clarify, this is Brian Sack and Jack Helmuth of the very funny Questionable Material podcast, and now frequent contributor to this show.
Yeah, and a very funny podcast, right? You said very funny, right?
I did say very funny.
Yeah, feels like it's a funny podcast.
It'll make you think. It'll make you cry. I mean, it's like kind of everything you want in a podcast.
It's literally, I've lost 6 pounds listening to your podcast. I've added muscle tone. My doctor says that she's amazed at my mental health since I've started listening to your podcast. Truly, you're doing a public service.
Yeah. And his lisp, and it's all gone.
That's right. Yeah, my lisp is gone. Yeah, I'm a baritone now. I used to have a very high, squeaky voice. It's amazing.
You still walk funny?
Yes, I do still walk funny. Actually, okay, I actually do walk funny. I broke my foot this time last year, right? I broke my ankle, and I had one of those moon boots on and a cane, and I went jogging yesterday, and then I went jogging Monday, and then yesterday my left knee hurt a lot, and my right hip hurt a lot. And I was like, oh, no, I got something out of whack, but now there's COVID, so I don't know how that works with physical therapists. Like, if they're going to try and do stuff for me remote, because I'm not going to be any good at that. So I run funny is the answer to that. I do run funny.
All right, well, I'm sorry I brought it up.
No, it's okay. I just have to avoid bears. And I feel like you know what? I think I have a winning personality. I think that if a bear approached me, I could talk that bear down.
Let's find out.
Knowing you, yes, let's find out. That would be, look, if you want to increase your numbers, as a TV guy, let me tell you, you need a stunt. This would be like a sweep stunt.
Yeah.
Andrew Heaton versus the bear. Forget this wig party stuff. Forget anything. Yeah, this is what people want to see. It's Shark Week, but for podcasts with bears.
Yep. That's okay. Fair enough. Jack, that's super helpful because I've been like, I feel like my growth rate is pretty slow. This isn't where I want the show to be at. Fight a bear.
Absolutely.
And that'll be it, which
we tried that 3 weeks ago and our numbers went crazy.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had a third host for a whole week and then, he didn't make it.
Yeah, well, it was, I mean, you hauled Gentle Ben out of retirement and then gave him a microphone and made him a member of the Questionable Material podcast. Was that a real show, by the way? Was Gentle Ben an actual show?
I believe it was. It's also, I think, a rice.
A rice? Oh, yes. I think you're right about that. It was also rice. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to kick our first headline. It comes to us from New Zealand. This New Zealand man gets paid $10,000 a year to be a city's official wizard. So I don't know if you guys read the whole story. It's a wonderful story. I read the first couple of paragraphs and I was like, this is malfeasance. I can't believe a city is wasting this money on a so-called wizard. And by the end of it, I was like, how do I get my city a wizard? This is a great deal. This might be the best thing that this city in New Zealand, Christchurch in New Zealand, has ever spent their money on.
What I love about this, so reading this article, so this guy basically is just sitting around being a wizard, he just hangs out on the street and
he's a performance wizard. Yeah, he comes out and just is wizard, but doing a lot of performance art under that guise. Yeah,
but they pay him like the equivalent of like half of an annual pension, right? For a normal New Zealander, they have they're making 20 grand a year. He's getting 10.
Yeah,
like that. But the best part is he's supported by his fiancée of 43 years.
I have that noted too.
When are you gonna pop the question there, wizard? What are you waiting for? The guy's like 90 years old almost.
Yeah, I believe he's 87, and he's been in an engagement for 43 years. So yeah, I guess they're just waiting for that their preferred church to open up, or maybe their honeymoon never got squared away. I don't know.
Or he's so good at spells that he can just make a woman wait for 43 years. You do not want to marry me this year. Okay.
What I went through here, and I really came to like the guy.
There were no wizards when I arrived in the world except in books. It's like, you know why? Because books are fiction and you're crazy.
Yeah, he might be crazy. That's entirely possible.
Well, I think he's a little eccentric is the word.
Yes, in 2020, you can say eccentric.
Yeah, he's eccentric.
Did you see that he's got a magician's apprentice? That he is a guy came up. I don't remember the guy's name, but he's 87, and a 34-year-old came up and went, I'm a wizard. And he went, all right, let's get started. And that was the entire, that was the whole of it. It was just time to go.
Well, all it takes. All these, they get rid of the SAT. You just need to walk up and be like, I'm a wizard.
Yeah, so here's some quotes from this article that I enjoyed. When he first became a wizard, he said he lost all of his friends and his wife left him. He says he turned her throwing him out of the house into a ritual by inviting friends to come too. To me, it was fun, but not to her. She's still furious. So as I understand it, he tried to turn his wife kicking him out into a public holiday, which is ballsy. I respect that. And he apparently really angered the council for a while before they started giving him money. In 1982, the New Zealand Art Gallery Directors Association said he had become a living work of art, which I think is probably what started getting him this grant to be a wizard for $10,000 a year. And he said he's not positive about modern art, which he describes as mainly about writing applications for grants.
And
I was like, you know what? I kind of like this wizard. I feel like he's I think he could be an interesting addition. This is why I'd like to have kind of a funny curmudgeonly dude wander around the street for $10,000 because cities spend money on way dumber things than that.
Absolutely. And they get a driver's license that says the wizard.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, I love I love I love the stones on this guy for crapping on arts grants when this guy's getting paid.
Yeah. He's
just sit around saying I'm a wizard.
He's I was reading into some of his theories because he's apparently, this isn't going to surprise you, he's very vocal about his opinions, which he views as his job, is just kind of wander around dressed as a wizard, shouting his opinions. And he'll be he'll say things like something very pro-woman for a moment, but then they'll be like, no, they can't be wizards. Only men can be wizards. Women can be fairies. Right. That's obvious. We all know the taxonomy, which for a made-up thing. And he's he kind of goes back and forth on climate change. So he's not it's not like the city council picked someone emblematic of the city council's views. They picked a loud, obnoxious curmudgeon who's probably delightful and lovable.
Who's all over the spectrum politically.
Yes, who's all over the spectrum.
And all over the spectrum.
And all over the spectrum. Have you guys ever heard of Elijah Nature Boy or Elijah the Nature Boy?
No. Sounds like a wrestler. Sounds like a very bad wrestler.
He sounds like a bad wrestler. I agree. I can't remember if I brought him up on the show before. If so, I apologize for anybody for repeating the story. But right before I left Washington, D.C., I got to know this guy named Elijah the Nature Boy, who is a fixture of Washington. And he looks like envision Black Moses. Like, picture in your mind, like very African Moses, like very, very dark skin, super white, like lamb white, giant beard. And he wanders around Washington, D.C. in a loincloth with a really gnarly stick. Like, he looks like he just wandered off of the African savannah. It's a very striking visual image because you'll see him in front of the Washington Monument and stuff. And for a second, you're like, did I timequake? What happened? And I got to know him because I was a Segway driver in D.C. before I left. And I would go past him hanging out in Lafayette Park, and which is across from the White House. And one day I swung back and I was like, when I'm done with this tour, I'm going to eat a sandwich. Can I come hang out with you? And he was like, yeah. So I started having lunch with this guy. And this was right before the 2012 election. So we're sitting on the bench before I leave, and I was like, by the way, Elijah, I'm moving to New York. And he's like, well, good luck to you, Andrew. And he starts talking, and he's like, now, do you know why I hang out in this park? And I was like, no, why is that, Elijah? And he goes, because God told me that I'm going to be president in 2012. It's going to be a surprise, upset victory. And I figured I should go ahead and scope out the neighborhood before I live in the White House. And I went, that's great, Elijah. Good luck with that. When you become president, appoint me an ambassador. And he took a deep breath, and then he went, listen, Andrew, I really like you, but I can't just appoint ambassadors because they're my friends. You'll have to be vetted like anyone else. And, and I was like, I'm impressed that this guy in a loincloth perhaps had higher standards than the current administration.
It's amazing. Administration, for that matter.
Yeah, of course.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how did he explain not winning the presidency in 2012?
Did he not win? I didn't even look into it. I kind of tuned out between 2012 and 2016. Was it not him?
Please, no spoilers. I DVR'd it. No spoilers. Please, 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 please.
I haven't talked to him yet. I kind of want to go back to find him and be like, yeah, what happened, dude? Yeah, did Ralph Nader take it from you at the last minute? What occurred?
Maybe
by a
president.
Huh?
Maybe he thinks he is president.
Maybe so. Or, okay, see, I've been positing this theory for 4 years now. I think we're living in the sitcom universe. I don't think we live in the real universe. I think we live in the sitcom universe. This season, it got weirdly dramatic. This was the season where the director decided to go super artistic with a plague and some weird stuff. But if they decide to bring it back and make it a wacky comedy again, he might win. That's why I thought Marianne Williamson was going to be the presidential nominee. Because I was like, if we're living at a sitcom, it would be Trump versus Marianne Williamson. So I maybe my theory's crumbling.
So we're basically living in the year that Dan Harmon is taking off.
Yes, exactly. Yes. I will kick it over to another interesting electoral story. This comes to us from our friends in Canada. Pet goose that survived Fox attack, now internet hero / Moose Jaw mayoral candidate. This is Steve, the 9-year-old goose in Moose Jaw, Ontario. He went missing last month. His owners, emailed everyone in the neighborhood, we're missing our goose. Has anybody seen our goose? They went outside. There was a pile of feathers next to the goose pen, and they're like, oh no. And then they started getting emails from their neighbors. They're like, well, we saw a fox yesterday that was running away with the goose. Would that have been your goose? And they're like, oh no, that's Steve. And then a couple days later, Steve shows up haggard, missing feathers, but he's back, and he waddles back into the yard. It has become this internet sensation in Ontario. I dare say he's probably the biggest celebrity out of Moose Jaw, Canada this month, and sparked a draft Steve for mayor campaign, who they are now proffering as a mayoral candidate. I think this is fantastic. I love it when people run animals as mayors. I think it's fantastic. I'm rooting for him.
The news report pointed out that he's not eligible because he's a goose.
Oh,
so the species that still has to be overcome.
Yeah, that's a weird Canadian law. I'm pretty sure you could do that in America.
I wrote that down too, Brian, where I noticed that they felt the need to put that in their news article.
Yeah.
Right. He really can't be mayor because technically it has to be a human. It's like, thank you for telling me, Canadian newscast.
You know what though? That works because you do get these cities in America like Alaska and Minnesota are really good about this, where like because Alaska's this like kind of crotchety pioneer state of like axe wielding like oil people that like just don't like they're kind of the last bastion of like, get off my lawn. By the way, my lawn is the size of Iowa. Like they've got that. So there's a bunch of towns in Alaska where the government will come in and be like, you got a post office, you're a town, you need a mayor. And they're like, you go to hell. We don't need a mayor. Our mayor is my cat. Mr. Whiskers is my cat. And then it becomes like a sign of pride in the town that every year they go, fuck you, government. They elect the cat. So I get why the Canadians would need to point that out to us, because they look at our news and they're like, they keep electing cats in Alaska.
You're crazy over there.
Yeah, and then in Minnesota, I can't remember. There's some town. It's like an unincorporated suburb or something. But their town tradition is they have all the toddlers draw a name out of a hat, and that toddler becomes mayor, and they give him an adorable top hat. And for years now, I've wanted to run a just vicious attack campaign against that toddler. Just roll into town and be like, that toddler's getting money from George Soros. He is on the hook. He's a globalist, and just like really be mean and nasty and see if I can't win that.
Do you know mayoral candidate Tim Jenkins crapped his pants last night?
I did too, but I did it because I was drunk. He did it because he's incontinent. Which one of us do you want? Me.
He constantly fondles his mother's breasts.
Vote Joe Biden. Wait a minute.
With the goose that wandered back into the yard, though, like I thought about this. This is the first thing that popped into my head when I woke up this morning. I was like, did that goose kill that fox? Like the fox didn't come back. The goose did, though. I think that goose like got pulled away and then just like wailed on that fox, killed it, and then wandered back and was like, all right, we know who's boss of this neighborhood, Mayor Steve.
Wow.
I took it in a different direction. I thought maybe, everybody assumes the fox was going to eat the goose, but maybe they have an interspecies relationship and they didn't want people to know. And so they kind of went off somewhere and did their thing. And that's why he's all haggard.
Maybe. Maybe.
That's not cool.
Oh, so you think that this wasn't like the goose nearly died. You think this was like a walk of shame where the goose like jumped out of the fox's fraternity apartment and wandered back to campus and didn't want anybody to see it, but its feathers were all a mess, satisfied but sweaty.
That's what I think happened.
Yeah. He definitely gave that fox a good honking.
I was watching the news report, the lady who owns the goose, and she's just like, oh, he's very, he's a take charge kind of goose. It's like, what?
The wide range of personality types, President Geese.
Yeah, he loves architecture. Really appreciates good books. It's like, no, it's a goose.
Yeah.
And did you guys also see that he's a widower?
Yes, is he?
Yes.
Oh man, he is a shoo-in for mayor. He's a shoo-in for mayor.
That's right. Yeah, I remember, like, I'm watching the report, and the reporter's like, and his partner Lulu died 4 years ago. Yep. And it's like trying to picture this reporter being serious about it.
The reporter who wrote this is either ecstatic that they got to cover this really funny story, or went home and tied a noose. One of those two things. There was no middle ground for this. It's either somebody that thought they were going to get a Pulitzer and is just disgusted with their life, or alternately somebody that's like, this is pretty fun working at the local paper.
Maybe Steve killed that reporter like he killed that fox.
Yeah, good point. Good point. That I think we can all agree Steve the Goose is the Francis Underwood of Canadian politics. He's shoving reporters in front of subways and things.
Now, do you think your buddy in Washington, Nature Boy, do you think he was maybe carried off by a fox? That's why we haven't heard from him?
You know what? That would make the most sense. Like if someone were to come to me and be like, "Oh, did you hear about Elijah?" And I'd be like, "No, is he okay?" Well, we don't know. There was a giant man-sized fox that came into Lafayette Park, and he jumped on the back and ran off on the back of it into the sunset like some sort of cosmic cowboy. I'd be like, that checks out. That is not only what I think happened to Elijah, that is how Elijah should leave this earth, is riding some sort of spirit animal fox into the sunset.
That's so awesome.
From Wisconsin, new Wisconsin justice sworn in during ultramarathon. Shout out to new Supreme Court Justice of Wisconsin, Jill Karofsky, who just finished her 100-mile ultramarathon. Oh my God, 100 miles? That's just insane. 100-mile ultramarathon after being sworn in mid-run. So based on my rudimentary math, she ran 50 miles. They met her all sweaty and wearing her jogging outfit and swore her in, and then she completed the remainder of the race. Okay, this is my thought. I think this is fine. Hats off to her for being able to jog that far. I can't, again, because my hip and knee are apparently out of whack, and it makes a weird clicking noise and it hurts. There's no way I could have done this, but hats off to her for being able to pull this off. I think this should be the rule, though. If you are sworn in as a judge while on a marathon, your decisions only work when you're jogging. So they have to put in a treadmill in her courtroom, and she can only issue orders while on said treadmill. Otherwise, it's non-germane.
I find for the defendant
the right of woman to have an abortion.
Ultramarathon people are interesting to me because when you run an ultramarathon, as I learned from someone I know who runs ultramarathons, your toenails fall off.
Really?
Yeah.
Like always?
This person I know who runs ultramarathons says that she'll lose a couple of toenails after every ultramarathon. And I thought, then why would you keep doing that? And it's just a thing that they do.
Yeah. So this strikes me as a sport with diminishing returns. I'm going to acknowledge my current level of fitness regime is probably not the ideal thing. You probably want to be working out more than I do, but less than an ultramarathon. I'd say probably actually closer to me than the ultramarathon. Like run like a quarter of a marathon semi-regularly.
Yeah, there's a happy, not even medium. There's just like a happy, happy 10.
When I see, I was in Austin for a few months. I was back in Austin for a week last week. And in July and August, you'll see psychopaths running at like 3 p.m. in Texas heat. And just every time I see them, I'm just like, you're nuts. You shouldn't be allowed to vote. Like I feel like this is some sort of weird physical preening you're doing. But no, I just can't fathom that any human being would enjoy or should enjoy jogging in August Texas heat at 3 p.m. It's nuts.
I can't even fathom that.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing.
Yeah. Although, what, that being said, though, there are some fat states. And maybe in the really fat states, we can incentivize people to be less fat by going like, hey, if you can complete an ultramarathon, you automatically get on the Supreme Court. Like all you have to do, if you run 100 miles, at the end of it, we just give you a hug and a gavel and go out, saunter forth and start ruling. State of Florida.
So what do I say no to bad things? Yes.
But why limit it to states? I mean, the Supreme Court stuff, continues to get just muddied and awful. We don't need another Kavanaugh situation. Let's let the man run and get his gavel.
Or it should be a race. What if it's just a fitness race?
Or that's not it.
Maybe, normally what we do is we have the president appoints Supreme Court justices and they sort of swing back and forth between Republican and Democrat and everybody freaks out. Maybe instead of having that, one of the justices is just the fastest person in America. One of the justices is the smartest jurist in America, and one of the justices can bang the gavel hardest, which they test out at carnival centers with those big old mallets. Whoever can make the light go to the top, that person gets on the court as well.
So strength, cardio, the ability to solve the New York Times crossword in a limited amount of time.
Yeah. Yep. This is what I'm thinking.
Merrick Garland, this is his chance. He races Brett Kavanaugh. Finally gets to stay in the sun.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Merrick Garland he's in his garage, just like pushing up his dumbbells, looking at this giant portrait of Neil Gorsuch, just growling. One of these days, I'm going to get on.
Out of American Beauty. Kevin Spacey in the garage, just pumping iron.
If I can deadlift 320, I've got this.
Back to Canada, accused Ottawa bank robber followed COVID-19 protocols, according to the police. I thought this was a charming story. A guy, an armed robber, robbed a bank, but he did wait patiently in line before robbing the bank. And in addition to waiting patiently in line, he also stood within the designated 6-foot gap between himself and the people that he was about to rob. And assuming that I become a judge due to overwhelming physical strength at some point in the future through some combination of steroids and gavel banging, I will say I will let off anybody pretty easy as long as they have like a truly devout reverence for the concept of lines. I think queuing is the backbone of civilization. You show me a country that doesn't understand queuing, and I will show you a country with a shitty banking sector.
It's called France.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. Have you? Now I'll say this. I really enjoyed when I went to Greece, but they don't queue over there. They just don't do it. It was so confusing to me because I was about to go to Mount Athos, but I'm at the bus station, and the system, from what I can tell, was just go to the window if you feel that your bus is coming up more quick than the other amorphous blob around you, and they all just kind of agree it's fine. Like, and it's just they kind of like, I guess, assess by how agitated they. I could never figure it out, but I was like, no, this is not. I can't. I'm not going to be. I can't work with this.
It's funny because I was going to Woman Athnos, and I had the same experience.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for being more inclusive than Andrew Heaton.
Yeah, that's true. And I only went to Mount Athos to avoid ladies. That was it. It was just it was very specific. Where could I go with no women? The goal of my life and current situation.
You could visit my bedroom for most of the 90s.
Yep. Gonna get a time machine and visit Jack Helmuth back in the 90s.
This is a very Canadian story.
Yeah.
The fact that he waited in line when he probably sanitized his hands before handing over the note.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say with an obligatory, like, multiple sorries, like, sorry, I'm robbing the bank. Oh, sorry, we'll just get you that money there. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, no, sorry. It took us just a little too long. There you go, sorry.
Oh, you're under arrest for felony bank robbery. Okay.
Trying
to make you work after hours.
That's one of the things that's confusing to me about Canada is the superfluous sorries. Like I've been up there a few times, and they'll say things like I'll go, good morning, and they'll go, oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. Good morning. And I'm like, you don't need to apologize. I was behind you. There's no reason you would have. Like, you do not owe me an apology for this.
No,
that's where you and I disagree, Andrew. I always point out the fact that they should be sorry.
Yeah, that's.
And then I unfold a full American flag, a full one, like you would, like fly over a Denny's or a Perkins, like one of those giant American flags, and I start waving it in their face and say it again, mother effer, say it again.
See, I would go the other way and try and dominate. I would just say crazy things and see if anybody was impolite enough to point out to me absolute bald-faced lies. Like, hey there, I'm Mark. Who are you? And I'm like, I am Prime Minister Stephen Harper, Prime Minister of Canada. And they'd, oh, okay. Good to meet you, Prime Minister Harper, because they couldn't confront me on it. And I was like, how far can I push this? And basically, I could be Prime Minister. That's the answer.
You told me I could lay with your wife just last weekend. Remember? Sorry. I didn't remember. Oh, sorry. Oh.
Final story for the day. In New Orleans, fine city, New Orleans musician offers kids trumpets in exchange for their guns. This is the New Orleans trumpeter Shamar Allen. There was a sad story. There was a 9-year-old that got shot by gun crime in New Orleans. And Shamar Allen came up with a novel program, which is I will give anybody a trumpet that gives me their gun. And so far, he has passed out 4 trumpets. And I say, more power to him. My only thing here is if you're going to replicate this in your own town, make sure you don't confuse your trumpet with your gun. You don't want to be out there on the stage playing some Zydeco music and then accidentally fire a pistol, or alternately be walking back to your car in an alley and get mugged and then, do like a Chuck Mangione solo. So, those are my 2 cents.
Well, the bank robber in Ottawa actually had done the exchange program and robbed the bank with a sweet blues riff.
But in Canada, that's considered aggressive enough to warrant handing over the money.
Exactly.
Oh, man, he seems serious about that riff there. I don't know. Sorry about that. I interrupted.
Sorry.
It's a very pretty story. I mean, it's a cute story when you read it on the face, but if you get into the details, trumpet crime increased fourfold.
Yeah, man, Bill, I'm looking at these stats here. Gun crime is down, but a lot of old people have been bludgeoned to death by trumpets.
Yeah,
it's
by
actually
trumpets.
far worse.
It is. Because it's like making sounds as it's killing you.
It's so quality of life crime. It's like a double crime. Well, so here's the thing about the story that really ticks me off, just on behalf of my friend Brian, because Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't you run a needle exchange for oboes program?
I do, and I feel like this guy ripped me off.
I do too.
Yeah, I've been handing out needles in exchange for oboes and any woodwind. Like, I'm not going to judge.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No questions asked. You give me a woodwind, you get a needle.
Okay.
So far, it's been very popular at the high school.
What are you doing with the oboes?
What I don't know what to do with them. I can't play them. I'm completely clueless when it comes to musical instruments.
Well, you know what? I really wish you luck, Brian, in your campaign to help diabetics. Get off of.
When I was a kid, I wanted to join the band and stuff, but my dad didn't have a gun, so I couldn't get a trumpet.
Yeah, that's too bad. It's a shame. It's always a pity when somebody wants to join the band and their dad doesn't have a sufficiently large revolver to get them the gun of their choice. Yeah.
Yeah, sad.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that we have to close out on that low note, but all the same, it was a pleasure talking to you both, Brian Sack and Jack Helmuth of the Questionable Material Podcast.
Thank you, Andrew Heaton.
We love you, buddy. Thank you.
Orphanage Podcast.
Wait, what was that, Brian?
Thank you, Andrew, from the Political Orphanage Podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you guys have come back on.
I'm glad you had us back on. Are you glad, Jack?
You know what? As I look back on this is going to be a memory I'm always going to have and cherish.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, I was about to say we have 2/3 of a vote that we're all glad, so we could overrule you, but I'm glad it's unanimous all the same, which is how moods work.
Just like the elections in Belarus.
Zing! Shots fired, Belarus. Okay, thanks, guys.